What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York. We are in the awesome, beautiful basement at St. Vitus in Brooklyn, and we are here with the almighty Ringworm. Thank you for your time, man.
No problem.
Yeah, we are here with James, also known as the Human Furnace.
Correct.
Yep. Before we start, I just want to say, as I mentioned before, hearing you guys sound test to Looks That Kill by Motley Crue has got to have been the best thing I've ever heard.
Yeah? Well, we only do like 15 seconds of it, but it was probably the best because you didn't hear me try to sing it, so...
Yeah. I was this close
right.
to jumping on stage and hearing you sing it.
You got the job. You got the job.
Awesome. I could sing like Vince.
There you go.
But
Vince can't even sing like Vince anymore, so...
But this is your third time here in Brooklyn, first with Harm's Way, then with Skinless, and now you're here with Blackfest. You sick of us yet?
No, we like New York. We come back all the time, especially Brooklyn. It's always good shows. Everyone treats us really nice, and yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. Yeah.
So it's been about 2 years since the release of Snake Church, your latest record, and
Yes.
I gotta say it was definitely one of my personal favorites of 2016. Beautiful and brutal. How do you have like a conclusion on the record cycle and everything?
For the new one?
Or yeah.
For that? Well, actually, we're pretty much, I guess, for the touring cycle for that one's pretty much done. Now we're going to do these few run of shows right here, and then we go back and finish the new record, which is almost done.
Awesome.
So,
are you intending to make kind of like a direct follow-up to Snake Church from a conceptual level, or are you going to make like this next record stand out in its own entity?
No, I mean, every record stands out on its own, I guess. There's not really a big, long conceptual thing, you know what I mean? And we're not going to try to reinvent the wheel with ourselves. We're just going to do what we're best at. So, it's just... If you like the other stuff, I would assume you'd probably like this new stuff too. It's we're not throwing any. I mean, there's some variants on it. You know what I mean? We do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but it's we're not gonna start playing electronic music or anything like that. We're not changing it up that much.
Hey, I mean, since you guys are from Cleveland and so is Nine Inch Nails, I thought maybe.
Well, no. Well, if there was money in it, maybe we could do it. I don't know.
But now being that, I mean, Ringworm has been around. I mean, you guys started in like '89 or something like that.
That's
right?
when we first got together. Yeah, in '89.
So at this point, I mean, have you kind of just in a way answered this question, but like, it's fair to say that you kind of know what you're doing now at this point in your career with making new music. It's not like
Sure.
you take a new approach each time.
No,
right?
everything's really streamlined at this point. I mean, it's always been pretty easy. There's no big pre-production. There's no big deal. I mean, Matt and Ryan, they write some songs. They record some stuff, tape it on their phones. They send it to me. I listen to it. I'm like, I write some words, and then they go record it in the studio, and then I go in afterwards and just do the vocals. And it's really streamlined the way we approach everything. It's not just meat and potatoes.
Awesome.
So we just go in there and they write songs, I sing over them, and it's done. You know what I mean? There's no big deal about it, really.
So you hear the music first each time before you get the lyrics done.
Oh yeah, well yeah. They don't usually know. They don't know. They never hear it with the lyrics until it's done.
Really?
Yeah, because I prefer to do vocals over like a pretty much finished version of the song, because sometimes there's stuff on practice tapes that they're not going to do in the studio, or sometimes in the studio there's happy mistakes. And you're like, oh, that's cool. Let's keep it in there because that was cool. So those are kind of important cues to sing off of sometimes. So for me, I'll just wait till they're done recording, and then I'll start listening to the songs, and then I'll start singing to them one by one until we're done.
Do you sometimes have like a lyrical concept in your mind before you hear the music, and you kind of
a little bit sometimes, but sometimes the song usually dictates kind of how the lyrics are gonna go. I'll have a vague concept, but each song kind of takes over itself and does its own thing.
Awesome.
So there's really no, and very, very rarely do I have any lyrics before the song. You know what I mean? I don't necessarily sit home and write a bunch of stuff, and I have stuff ready for certain songs. I just wait to hear the song, and then I come up with something.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's the way I operate.
Yeah, I would, not to discredit it seems like a very easy, and I don't want to say easy because it's never easy writing music, but like it seems like to be the perfect way to write music rather than think of this subject matter and try to change the instrumentals according to that.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's like that. If I listen to a song and I'll be like, oh, what if we played this part? On some records, like we've got a little bit of room to play around with. Like, oh, this part would be cool if you did it 4 times instead of 8 times. You know what I mean? Like, And there's some stuff where we could change around a little bit but for the most part, when the song is done, that's the song. So there's really no changing it. So that's what I have to work with.
Excellent. Now, a lot of people have really referred to you guys like as a lot of different genres. Like I heard one individual say that like they refer to Ringworm as kind of like one of the early daddies of metalcore. Then compared you guys to thrash metal and death metal. It seems like you guys have all different types of elements. Would you say that Ringworm has, while you guys definitely have a formula, you guys have definitely bring in a lot of different stuff, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we all grew up with tons of different influences. I mean, we're all like skate punks, and then we listen to like early thrash metal and crossover and punk rock and all types of stuff, and then like the early first wave of like, Swedish death metal and New York hardcore and shit like that. So we bring a lot of different influences into what we're doing, each one of us individually. So I mean, we like all different types of stuff. We don't want to, I guess we kind of formed our own sound from all those differences coming together. So after a few records, we kind of had our sound, but it's a mix of everything. You know what I mean? Because we all listen to everything.
Yeah.
I mean, lyrically and maybe not. I guess not. Obviously, I can't sing like most people do, but I mean, like vocally, I'm influenced by a lot of people that aren't really in metal bands. You know what I mean? Like different singers from just their style or their approach or the way they present the words and stuff like that. So I get a lot of influence from all different types of stuff. Alice Cooper, stuff like that. How they tell stories or just their vocal presentation, their vocal attack on stuff. So it's not always like metal or stuff that me personally is like influenced by. So I just
Yeah, and I could definitely hear that when you sound check. Like you definitely had a great range.
Well, I wouldn't call it a range. I don't. If you call it a range, that's cool. Basically, I just scream as loud as I possibly can 100% of the time.
Well, I mean,
that's my style.
You compare Corpse Grinder to Danny from Cradle of Filth.
Right. Yeah. Right. I mean, I do what I can with what I got. I'm not a very good singer, but I could scream pretty good. So that's what I try to do.
That you can.
Yeah.
Now, one reason why I did bring up the diversity in your music is because the first time I actually saw you guys, I actually popped the Ringworm cherry this year, seeing you guys with Harm's Way.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. That Harm's Way in Vain, that was like more of kind of like a hardcore show, and then you were here with Skinless, which I sadly had to miss because I had pneumonia. Don't rub it in.
No, it's all right.
But that was like a pure Skinless is a death metal show, and now you're here with Blackfast, which is kind of like more of a thrashy thing. Have you ever like noticed a different type of vibe or audience depending on who you play with?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's one thing that we've always been able to do is kind of cross genres, because we could go out and play with old punk rock bands. We could play with death metal bands. We could come out with hardcore bands, which, over almost the past 30 years that we've been doing this, we've been able to do that. And you notice there's different types of, different types of vibes with crowds. I mean, obviously, a predominantly hardcore audience. They have their own way of going about doing things, with the way they dance and the hardcore dancing and the, spin kicks and punching and all that stuff like that. Crowd killing bullshit,
Yep, I learned the hard way at
that. That's what that is, and that's okay, if that's what they're into. And then if you play for, say, a death metal crowd, they're more, less of that and more headbanging, more circle pits and stuff like that. So there's different, different crowds that conduct themselves different ways, And for us, it's kind of weird because at this point, we have a lot of fans that come out to see us because they're metalheads, and they don't look at us like they're a hardcore band, because they're like, yeah, it's a metal band, what? Yeah. But, a lot of them will come out to the shows and they'll want to come up and headbang, but then there'll also be a couple like hardcore dudes that want to do their thing, spinning around, throwing punches, and then next thing you know, just some poor kid who wants to come up and headbang is getting kicked in the back of the head, and he's like, what the fuck?
Headbanging literally.
He's like, what the fuck, man? What is this? Why am I getting kicked in the back of the head? So sometimes we get a little cross in audiences, because we play in front of different audiences. So sometimes that's weird, but all in all, it's really good because it's cool to look out and you see like hardcore kids, you see punk rock kids, you see straight up metal kids that are all into it, so it's good. You know what I mean? It's not just it's a very diverse crowd, and that's kind of inadvertently we do our own thing. We don't really give a shit who likes this and who doesn't. But it's always really cool to look out and you see all different types of fans digging it.
Which is something I really appreciate. I mean, like you mentioned, like the whole hardcore and death metal thing. I mean, I appreciate it. I think like a lot of deathcore bands, like Whitechapel, kind of did that as well. 1 minute it's a circle pit, then the next minute it's crowd killing like crazy. And I think you guys kind of really were. And I think people don't realize like you guys definitely started that whole idea of kind of combining.
I don't know. That's for someone else to decide. I don't know. We just started a band and we never quit. That's pretty much it. So, labels are one thing. If people want to say we started something or we were one of the first bands to do stuff, that's cool.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's for them to talk about. You know what I mean? We just keep playing music. That's all.
Yeah. And the final question I wanted to ask you is, you guys are from Cleveland, Ohio,
That's right.
Yep. So, I mean, Cleveland, I mentioned Nine Inch Nails before, but I mean, let's just go over, because, it's the home of Chimera and it's the home of some Mushroom Head, a lot of other awesome bands. So I was just curious, starting there, like, was there like a scene there when Ringworm first started?
Sure. There was a huge scene. I mean, there was a huge death metal scene there. There was a huge punk rock scene, like a little bit before my time, with like the Dead Boys and the Pagans and stuff like that. Those bands were fucking huge. And then obviously you got Nine Inch Nails and you got Chimera and you got Mushroom Head and you got Integrity, and then there's One Life Crew and
Filter,
Face Value and Filter. I mean, the scene, almost in every city, scenes kind of like they go up and down. They have a really good scene and then it kind of slows down a bit. You know what I mean? But like Cleveland's consistently had a very good scene. At times kind of slow. It depends on, a lot of that depends on when you have venues too. A lot of cities don't have venues.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They end up playing at DIY places and those get shut down and they can't find a place to build a scene. Cleveland's pretty fortunate because ever since I was going to shows as a really young kid, there's always been a million places you could put on a show.
Absolutely.
There was never any problems with it. You could do it at there were plenty of clubs. So that's pretty important for building a scene. So some cities are unfortunate like that because they're trying, you know what I mean? They're putting on house shows or they're doing, DIY shows here and stuff, and it keeps getting shut down, and that's just how it is. So we've been pretty fortunate in that. And these days, like, I'm knocking on 50 years old, so as far as like the scene goes, I'm a little detached from it. You know what I mean? I do my band and I go to shows here and there and stuff, but like, I couldn't really speak to like, what's really going on. I'm sure there's a shit ton of young bands that I don't even know about. You know what I mean? So, but I always trust in Cleveland. Cleveland always has something going on. Always. You know what I mean? Yeah. I wouldn't claim to be an expert on the scene now. You know what I mean? But I mean, I know enough that I see stuff. There's tons of bands going on. You know what I mean? So, and a lot of them are punk rock bands. A lot of them are just. There's some good metal bands.
A lot of great up and coming bands.
You might know more than me.
Alethea,
you know what I mean?
and Entralis.
Okay, see, I don't know any about those, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, there's always something going on,
Yeah.
And so it's the young kids is what keeps the scene going on, because when you get older, you just you go out there, you do your thing, and then you go to work. You know what I mean? You got to go to work and you got to pay some bills and stuff like that, and you keep doing what you're doing, but. It's really the young bloods that keep the scene vibrant and going, Oh,
I appreciate you saying that. You have no idea how many hardcore heads bust my balls for being a millennial. I'm 24,
well,
so.
I mean, hey, everyone's 24 at one point, I guess. But it is what it is. I mean, obviously you might have a different perspective on everything when you get older. You know what I mean? Because you're like, I used to do that and I used to do this, but it is really. It's the young kids that keep it going, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, the older generation, they say Agnostic Front was their up-and-coming hardcore band. For younger people like me, it's probably Code Orange, so...
Yeah, I mean, nice kids. We toured with those guys. We were out with them for about a week or something like that. But, they're doing great, you know what I mean? It's like, as far as, like, local scenes, like, not just the bands, like, the kids that go to the shows. I mean, those are, like, young kids, and that's what keeps scenes... keeps them going. You know what I mean? That's what, if you got a scene, that means that the bands are going to come and want to play in your town. So it's like, you keep that going and then things just build upon itself.
And that's the gateway into older bands too.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes, yeah. I mean, I was always a big, I wouldn't want to say historian, but I have a very broad musical taste in music. So, but I always went out of my way, even when I was younger, to look at older bands, even before younger band. Like if I seen a band when I was really young and I seen what shirt they had on, I was obsessed. I'm like, what is that? What is that guy listening to?
Yeah.
So I would go look up that band, whether it be like, really old metal, really old obscure metal bands, or even like, when I was really young, I would, I just, even if it was old rock and roll bands, anything like that. So, I always think it's important to know your history too. You know what I mean? As far as being well-rounded musically and stuff like that, that helps. I don't know if the question's veering off the tracks.
No.
But that's just
I appreciate
way I feel
it.
About,
Yeah, no, it means a lot to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much for your time. Just just the usual. You're doing this tour right now with Blackfast. And I was talking to you. I was actually also just talking to Mark a little bit earlier. But I heard some new music coming out from Ringworm. And
yeah, we finished this. This is like a week. We go home. I've got a couple more songs that I have to finish, and then we can start putting it together. I'm doing the album cover, so I got some hours to put it on the album cover, and then then we figure out when it's going to come out. Most likely, it'll come out at the beginning of the next year. At this point,
awesome.
It'll be done well before that, but that's not how the business works.
Of course,
you got to hurry up and wait. So, that's what we're going to do.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Not a problem.
Everybody, we are here with the Human Furnace of Ringworm. Pick up Snake Church if you haven't already. New Ringworm coming in 2019. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We will see you next time.